Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'll be reviewing the film Jurassic World Rebirth. I was actually planning on reviewing M3 2.0 along with this movie, but as I was writing my notes, I realized I just had so much to say about Jurassic World that it's actually going to have to be its own thing. So in case I don't get to review M3 2.0 here in the future, you can check out my quick review for that on Letterboxd, and that goes for some other films I haven't had time to review on here. But to summarize my thoughts on that film real quick, it's one of the biggest disappointments of the year. I really like the first M3, but this one just didn't do it for me. It really just let me down, so that was a bummer. But anyway, going to Jurassic World Rebirth, first I kind of want to just start off by saying my thoughts on this franchise as a whole and where I stand on it. I'm someone who personally loves the first film. The original Jurassic Park is basically a perfect film. Like, when people ask me what's my favorite movie, that's what I say, Jurassic Park. I love the film so much, and I think it just captured this movie magic you can't find anywhere else. Like, it's the Spielberg magic, and it has this perfect blend of wonder and horror. And that's something I'll mention again later in this review, but it's something that's just so perfect, and I just think it captures it so well. Like, this beauty of the dinosaurs and also this terror that they bring as well, and it just brings it so perfectly. And the first half of this film is like this grounded science fiction drama about the ramifications of human greed and the need to keep innovating despite, constant warnings and going against human nature. And then the second half of this film is a horror action movie where people are dying and everyone is just trying to make it out alive. And that's what I adore about that first film so much. Like, I kid you not, the room I'm recording this in has at least 5 separate Jurassic Park related items, and that's not even including my phone lock screen. So I swear I'm not obsessed. It's perfectly healthy, okay? But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's any other Jurassic sequel that's been able to capture the same feeling the original had. The Lost World is well made and even more intense, but I would also say it's kind of boring in areas. Not the whole movie, but, when there's not, like, a lot of dinosaur stuff going on, I think it's a little boring. Jurassic Park 3 is a dumb, guilty pleasure. Jurassic World is somewhat entertaining, but far too reliant on nostalgia. Fallen Kingdom is another dumb, guilty pleasure, but with big ramifications this time that, will probably piss off a lot of Jurassic Park fans. And then Dominion is a dumb, boring dinosaur locust espionage movie that also kind of happened to be a finale and was bringing back the old characters and meeting the new characters, and God, that movie is such a mess. But as you can see, I really don't think there's any Jurassic movie that even comes close to the original, not even a slight bit close. And frankly, after Dominion came out, which was terrible, I kind of just gave up on this franchise. It killed any excitement I would have had for future installments. Not that I thought there would be any, because it was supposed to be the finale, at least not for a while. And then comes along Jurassic World Rebirth, which is what we're here to talk about today. It's kind of interesting because this movie's announcement basically came out of nowhere. Dominion was supposed to be, the finale to everything, as I said. It's supposed to be the end of this sort of, like, franchise or whatever they're doing, this 2-trilogy arc, I guess. And then suddenly, 2 years later, they're already making another one. And on one hand, I was a little more optimistic because they had David Koepp, the writer of the first 2 Jurassic Park movies, writing this one too, plus Steven Spielberg, the director of the first 2 Jurassic Park movies, was rumored to be more heavily involved behind the scenes. But on the other hand, David Koepp hasn't really had a great career lately. I mean, I think this year he had 2 movies come out, and both of them I actually did like, but before that, he was having a lot more misses than hits. And I also hated the fact that when this movie was announced in early 2024, Universal gave a release date only around a year and a half from then, mid-2025. And it's just not a lot of time for a movie of the size of this film to shoot it, edit it, and then work in all the visual effects, which this franchise has a lot of. And Universal was so hell-bent on making this release date that they even started building the sets before hiring a director. And I just hate that, frankly. I think that's really, like, anti-creative filmmaking. Like, why? I understand this stuff takes a lot of work. A lot of times people start visualizing, do visual effects before shooting a movie because that stuff takes a lot of time. But in this case, it's like, they're just so rushed to make this movie that they literally are, like, preparing to shoot it before they have someone to make the movie. And I'm like, why don't you just take another year and just make sure you take the time it needs to get it right? And basically, Universal's take on this movie, in my opinion, is we have a script that we really like, and we don't want anyone who comes in to do anything differently or to make their own mark or put their stamp on it. We just want it to stay exactly as it is, and we want to shoot it exactly as it is, and we want someone to come in and just make it on the fly. And it's nice to see a studio confident in their script and not want it messed with. I mean, I think that's great, but to basically make it so the director is just coming in last minute and shooting instead of getting input put in, I think it's very sad. But as luck would have it, they did get director Gareth Edwards to make the film. He did stuff like Star Wars Rogue One, Godzilla 2014, and The Creator. He's a great visual filmmaker who actually happens to work on fairly weak scripts, I think. All of his movies, I would say, are undeniably well made. Like, they're well shot. They look great. He has an eye for that stuff. But I think the scripts for all those films were rather weak. Maybe The Creator was the best of those three, script-wise. Like, the characters were the best. But even then, I was kind of like, eh. So part of me hoped that if Universal was so happy with the script, maybe Edwards would only need to put his visual stamp on the film and not much else. Maybe the script would carry those things for him. So how did I like the movie? Well, I actually enjoyed it. To me, this is the best sequel in the franchise. Not even just the World franchise, but the whole thing. Not that it's a high bar, and I'm sure there will be a lot of people who disagree with me on that. I mean, they're very hardcore, the Lost World fans. There are some people who think Jurassic World, the first one, was, like, easily the best sequel. But in my eyes, this is the sequel that captured that balance I was talking about earlier. That perfect, beautiful balance of wonder and terror and horror. It just does it the best of any of the movies. I mean, I think The Lost World and Jurassic World 1, like, those two came the closest. Like, The Lost World kind of had the terror, and Jurassic World had some more of the wonder, but neither of them really got the whole thing right. This movie, Rebirth, I think got it the closest. And this story here, which, got right back to basics, is about a team of people who are trying to get dinosaur DNA to possibly find a cure for heart disease. And I appreciated that this franchise went back to a more grounded approach. And it has all the right ingredients to be a good Jurassic movie. I think just by being a more grounded film, it just returns to being more about, like, the dinosaurs and just more about being on their turf and just kind of not belonging in their area, just trying to survive. Gareth Edwards' direction is actually the best part of this film, in my opinion. I love his sense of scale, the way he builds tension, and he has a great eye for visuals. Alexander Desplat does a good score that feels very reminiscent of something from John Williams. I do wish the original stuff he did was more memorable, but I thought it worked nicely, and I think the returning theme from the original film was used nicely. The cinematography here is also some of the best in the franchise. I would say, definitely the best since Fallen Kingdom. The cinematography, I would say, like, overall, the first film, The Lost World and Fallen Kingdom, were all, like, the best looking. This is definitely fits in that category. Very nice looking film. The editing here is good. I thought the actors did a good job, namely Jonathan Bailey, Luna Blaise, and Audrina Miranda. Everyone else was decent, but these are the standouts to me. I think they also had the most to work with, I guess, in the script. And that's the thing, because the character development here is pretty lame. One of my bigger issues with the film is that I just didn't feel very attached to any of the characters. And there are two groups of people in this film. The group who is setting out to get DNA from the dinosaurs, and then this family who kind of intercepts the other group. And I was surprised to see that I was actually more invested in the random family out of the two groups. And it surprised me because, Jurassic Park 3 kind of did a similar thing where it's like you have the family there and you have, like, the main group that we're really like interested in. And the family in that movie was really annoying, and I was kind of like, I was kind of thinking Rebirth might do a similar thing, but I was actually really happy to find that I really actually did end up caring more about the family and was invested in them surviving. None of the characters really had a lot of development, but I just thought as a dynamic, they felt like an innocent group of people just trying to stick together and make it through this, which is one of my favorite parts of the first film too, just seeing a group that isn't really completely prepared for what they're about to deal with and just trying to make it out okay and just trying to, not get traumatized too much and just try to get out safely. And the thing with this movie, though, is I really think a lot of my issues, my core issues with this film, come down to one thing, which is that there are way too many characters. Like, if you just cut down the groups in half, or you just get rid of one group, keep the other, I think everyone would have gotten a little more to do and been more memorable. Scarlett Johansson's character seems to me like she was supposed to be the leader of the film, and they gave her a little bit of backstory here and there, but I just didn't think it was nearly enough or well written enough to get me engaged in her character. I just didn't really feel invested in seeing where she went, and I mean, I hope future films, if they include her again, could change that. I think there's potential to do something with her. I don't know, like the dialogue scene she has with like Mahershala Ali, there was like one really oddly executed scene like that where they're both just kind of like, it's trying to be jokey in the way they're like describing their past, but they're more sad past, like it's trying to add some humor there, but it didn't really work. It just kind of felt awkward. So I don't know, if they just did a little more though with her character, I think there could have been a lot more investment on my part. And while I'm kind of talking about my other issues with the film, another thing I just wasn't crazy about is that for some reason, this franchise has become less interested in dinosaurs and more interested in mutants and hybrids lately. And I think Rebirth, thankfully, has a lot more dino than the other, but I kind of wish we just did without the other and went back to pure basics, went back to just all dinosaur like the first film and, all the other Jurassic Park movies. Because the World movies were really interested in, like, these hybrids and the cloning and, all this stuff I mentioned before. And I'm like, this isn't what we want from this franchise, though. I mean, I understand, you're trying to still do this commentary on, like, innovation and corporation and stuff like that. But I think there's a certain place where it just kind of becomes too much, for a movie that's about dinosaurs, for a franchise that is, at its core, about dinosaurs. And apparently locusts now. I don't know. I mean, thankfully the locust thing is gone now, but yeah. So I just think we need to kind of go back to pure basics, and I just wasn't crazy about the mutant hybrid thing here. I mean, it was okay. It was better than some of the other films that did it, but could have done without it still. Those are really my main issues, though. I'd also say the movie feels a little overlong, especially in the first half. I really didn't even feel like I was enjoying the movie all that much until the end of the first act. But once the movie gets into the dinosaur action we all came for, I thought it was a lot better. It was a lot more interesting, a lot more entertaining, and a lot of the dinosaur sequences are major standouts. Not just in this movie, but in the franchise. And one scene in particular with a T-Rex was really great. It was taken out of the first book, and it was supposed to be used in the first film, but they never actually did. So now it was brought back here, and I'm super glad it was. It's a great scene. Definitely, again, just reminded me a lot of the first Jurassic Park movie, and that's a major compliment in my book. Not just even, and that's what I want to clarify here. I feel like the first Jurassic World movie was very heavy on nostalgia, like really obsessed with reminding us of what we loved about that first film without really adding any new major commentary. It was just kind of like a highlights track of like, oh, remember the Jeeps? Remember the Jurassic Park shirts? You remember the helmet one of the kids wore? It's like, it's just not stuff that really makes you be like, oh, this is a great movie. It's just reminding you of what you liked about the other one. And this film does a little bit. I'm not going to say it does nothing, because, he does play the original theme a few times. It has some nice, returning dinosaurs. But I feel like in context is key. I feel like Rebirth was much more delicate about that nostalgia and really it's not hammering it home, in my opinion. Like, I didn't feel like this movie was banging me over the head with nostalgia. I just felt like it was kind of like, just kind of, just pushing it in there a little bit, just kind of inserting a little bit of nostalgia to kind of get the feels going, but it still stands on its own. Like, it didn't need nostalgia to carry the entire movie like the first Jurassic World did. It didn't have to do that. Like, this movie could have removed those things or just switched the dinosaurs out, and it would have worked just as fine. But I think the fact that it's used here still works. And the last thing I really just want to touch on here is that I like the message this movie is going for. Like, it actually does have something to say, similar to the first film and even the first Jurassic World. It's a commentary on corporate greed, more specifically on how corporations aren't looking out for humanity, they're just looking out for money and themselves. So I think it definitely fit this franchise well, but it also felt like saying something new that hasn't been said before yet, in this franchise at least. But really, I do think this is an entertaining movie. Like, it's by no means perfect, but I just thought that if this is any indication of where this franchise could go down the line in the future, and frankly, I have no idea where they could go even with this franchise anymore. Like, this film felt very standalone. Like, it felt like the kind of movie where if it bombed, they could just kind of stop and it would be fine. But if it succeeded, they could maybe do something else. I just don't know where there is to go anymore. But I'm open to seeing it, I guess. And I'm far more optimistic than I was before. I just say, give David Koepp the time to flesh out another script, really let him work on it and let it, marinate a lot more. And then let Gareth Edwards be a part of it. I mean, I don't think he's had the best past and track record with, other people's scripts and whatever, but I think at least, let him give some of his ideas in there and let him, at least contribute a little bit of it. Make it more of a team effort. Because I don't know, it's just, Gareth Edwards really did a great job on this film, and I think I'd at least like to see what he could do if he really was given the time to, like, let his ideas kind of get in the film also, instead of just shooting someone else's movie. Frankly, I could probably nitpick Jurassic World Rebirth to death if I wanted to, and I really wish that the characters were more memorable, because that's the key part from the original film that, frankly, none of these other movies have been able to get right. But right now, I'm thankful to say that this franchise feels like it's in the right hands again. Like, I feel more confident than I did before about where it could possibly go. And if you've been burnt out by the last couple movies in this franchise, but you really like the original like I do, then I think you should still give it a shot. But if you're kind of iffy on most of the sequels, then your guess is as good as mine about whether you like it or not. The movie actually has very mixed reviews, which I have to say, like, I'm kind of surprised. Like, I feel like this movie is already kind of underrated. Maybe I need to watch it again. Maybe I'll feel better or worse the second time, but I don't know. I mean, I thought it was pretty entertaining. Like, I think it was far better than the last few movies, at least. So, I don't know. I'm curious to see where it goes. Curious to see what other people think of it. But I'm going to rate this movie a B. Initially, I was actually going to give it a B minus, but I think the parts of this movie that do work are worthy of bumping it up just a little. So, it's going to be a B. And that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.